Good afternoon, everyone. Caresoft Technology would like to welcome you to our ServiceNow webinar. Before we get started, I would like to quickly go over just a few housekeeping items. The audio portion of this webinar can be heard through your computer speakers, or if you prefer, you can listen through your phone using the dial-in option displayed on your screen. Please note to reduce any kind of background noise, all lines have been muted during this presentation. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please use the Q&A pod on the left side of your screen, and we will do the best to answer your questions by following up with you offline. This webinar is being recorded and a copy will be emailed to you. Just to tell you a little bit about Caresoft, we are a trusted government IT solutions provider delivering software and support solutions to federal, state, and local government agencies as well as education. Caresoft maintains dedicated teams to support sales and marketing initiatives for all of its vendors, including ServiceNow, Google, F5 Networks, and Adobe. Our contact information will be displayed at the end of the presentation, so please feel free to email us or reach out afterwards. At this time, I'd like to introduce you to our speakers for today. We have Chris Rusick, Mary Barnes, and Tony Funkhauser with ServiceNow. Guys, the floor is all yours.
Hello and welcome. Mary, Tony, and I are part of your ServiceNow Federal team, and we want to thank Caresoft for hosting our webinar series. Today we plan on speaking with you about software asset optimization. And you're going to see most existing functionality, but some parts of the demo may include future features. And at that point, we'll try to do our best to make note.
Now, we'll show how it fits in shortly, but the combination of the ServiceNow CMDB and our SAM Professional, or SAM Pro, creates strong business cases where SAM becomes an influential factor in saving your agency money, prepares you for audits, and enables business innovation by reducing time spent on tracking and managing your asset estate.
That's right, Mary. When we talk about software asset management on the platform, many people in the organization define success differently. In fact, I'd go out on a limb to suggest that software asset management is a business initiative.
And when multiple departments in an agency begin to care, I'd venture to say it's now an agency-wide strategic business initiative. That brings us to our first poll question. Please use your voting buttons to answer this simple yes or no question. Is SAM a strategic initiative in your agency? To frame this up, think more about the greater function of asset management as it relates to different departments within your agency. Pause a few more seconds. It looks like we've got about a 40-60 split, so almost 50-50. And that explains why SAM Professional is one of ServiceNow's most fastest growing products in the history of our company.
So to level set, the goal of SAM is to provide the visibility and control of software license processes throughout the entire asset lifecycle. This visual shows the stages of the software asset lifecycle. As you can see, there are a lot of moving parts.
That's right, Chris. Agencies want and need to be able to answer these basic questions. What software do we own? Are we buying what we need? Are we using what we have? And additionally, do we have all the rights we need for everything we're using? Do we have a bunch of unused software sitting on the shelf that could be redistributed? SAM Professional helps answer these types of questions and more, so you can track a software asset through its entire life cycle, which is all made easier with a single source of truth, the ServiceNow CMDB.
Hey, Chris, looks like your slides went away.
Sorry, did you say that the slides have stopped showing?
Yeah, I can't see that, Chris.
I do apologize.
We're on slide 6.
Right. It looks like Adobe Connect has frozen for me. Let me, I have to apologize, close out and reopen, I think. Sorry for some technical difficulties, everyone.
Looks like Tony's got it up and running.
Okay, Tony, can we go to slide 6? Thank you. From helping dozens of federal agencies on their SAM journey, we've determined that these are the personas who care about SAM being successful in their agency. Let's discuss why they care that SAM is properly optimized for their team's function.
I do apologize here. One moment. So, Mary, the low hanging fruit on this slide is obviously the SAM team. They most certainly care, but when you think about why they care, you start to see that others are relying on their success. For example, the enterprise architects here in the lower left-hand corner, they're working on technology planning, not just the software, but the hardware that runs on too. They care about deprecating old software, operating systems, and migrating to the latest and greatest to allow for the best technology experience in the agency.
Of course, this causes the agency to spend or plan to spend money. As a result, the IT finance and planning teams care. Optimization is of paramount importance. If the finance team is battling with an auditor, for example, they're simply eating up funds without getting the benefit of any new functionality or new product. An optimized SAM estate allows the finance and planning teams to optimize their plans to support the overall objectives.
That's a great point, Mary. If we have the EA team and the IT finance team both caring, you're going to get the attention of the CIO.
That brings us to our second poll question. When thinking of software asset management, how do you define value? Take a look through these 6 choices and pick which one best fits where you are today on your SAM journey. Well, not surprisingly, it looks like you all define value differently, which is very common from what we're seeing. But, all those reasons are very important to us. So can we go to slide 8, Tony? So if you remember, we kicked things off with SAM becomes a strategic business initiative. But unfortunately, many agencies in asset management is currently a real business problem.
Mary, how many initiatives fail due to bad data?
Gartner says 40%, Chris.
Amazing. And how much unused software do you think that there is on desktops?
Gartner says it's an average of $259 per desktop, but for skilled labor positions, I'm betting it's higher than that.
Interesting. So I would guess that if we're reducing licenses, we would also save on maintenance costs per desktop.
Would you believe if I told you Gartner estimates $104 saved per desktop?
Wow. Well, what about operational losses from OS compatibility? Are those a thing of the past, aren't they?
Actually, no. Pwnymon estimates $52 lost per desktop.
Interesting. Tony, could you go to the next slide for me? So These are the questions that we have substantiated metrics for. Can you imagine some of the savings you could realize by answering some of the questions that are on this slide? So whether it's because someone has inadvertently purchased a single seat license to some of the software or IT service, thereby creating what we call shadow IT, maybe getting legal involved because of a contract or audit dispute, or because of the technology planning activities, which would impact the long-term budget, SAM obviously plays a role here.
Yeah, and that's not to say that SAM doesn't solve IT problems. A well-running SAM practice absolutely does. You'll be able to answer questions otherwise not answered in your cabs. You can help IT security or even properly reharvest and optimize your software spend so money isn't wasted. Can you go to slide 10, Tony? Taking a look at the software asset lifecycle again, here are some common needs at each stage. You'll notice that many of the departments or functions represented aren't actually IT in nature. Having an answer to otherwise tough situations like, I need an easier way for employees to request software. I need to know software costs associated with an IT change. I need to see a software vulnerability fast so I can take action.
So when workflows are automated, SAM drives value across the business to APM, IT change, HR, and more. And as SAM continues to deliver more strategic business, and as SAM continues to deliver, the more strategic it becomes to the business. ITAM professionals get promoted and gain a seat at the senior IT decision table.
Can you go back to 10, Tony? So this visual shows how SAM, sitting natively on the CMDB, brings ServiceNow applications together in meaningful ways. With software data that drives action as agencies manage the entire software asset lifecycle. From request to retirement of software licenses, SAM shares data with other platform applications to provide a more complete picture of software usage, spend, and license compliance risks. For each step in this revolving cycle, you can easily identify which products support that specific step. Next slide, please. Now, ServiceNow recognizes that many customers are struggling to implement an effective SAM strategy. Lack of visibility or current software spend or usage, underdeployment, overutilization of licenses, and even siloed SAM initiatives. Basically, different organizations within the same agency doing the same thing, spending twice as much time and money, often with little success.
That's right, Mary. Furthermore, agencies tend to struggle with non-compliance activities, complex licensing models, and let's face it, because we're proving that SAM is a basic business initiative living in an IT world, many tell us about their disjointed processes, often relying on disconnected tools.
Let's go to our third and final poll question. What is your number one asset management challenge? Chris, it looks like we've got votes spread out across every challenge. Not surprising.
That's interesting.
Thank you all for voting.
That's interesting. I'd expect these changes, these percentages to change depending on the time of year or maturity of the agency. And as we look at the results of this poll, let's frame up the next piece and make some real-world references. Mary, Tony, and I are well aware that given the current work-from-home conditions, asset management and user desktop support divisions are working diligently to get properly provisioned laptops in the hands of people quickly in an effort to support existing missions with minimal disruption. It's assumed that many of these situations are supported by unfunded requests or situations where software will be deployed and maybe there would be a true-up later in the year. In a moment, Tony's going to take a brief opportunity to go through in some detail and show you on the platform what ServiceNow can do to help you best manage what is today's new normal. Let's go on to the next slide, if you don't mind. So first, Tony's going to show you about the Service Catalog, how it enables a proactive approach for your end users while providing a mechanism for allowing the release of software which currently has a license and is approved for consumption. Next.
Tony will also show the remediation actions for blacklisted software. We're all realists. Sometimes this software makes it out onto an agency asset, which can cause productivity, licensing, or even security challenges. SAM Professional allows you to employ proactive measures to keep blacklisted software off of your network.
Speaking of security challenges, when you see how asset management data becomes pivotal to the vulnerability remediation process, Tony's going to go into some detail here and look at that exact functionality. Next.
We then move on to more immediate and everyday asset management challenges. Tony will explain how enterprise architects can use application portfolio management to proactively plan for their agency's asset estate, leveraging asset data found in the CMDB.
Next up is one of my particular favorites. When it comes to change management, it's otherwise impossible to understand how CAB decisions impact future licensing. And what I'm talking about is when you approve a CR, which is to add more cores to a virtual running maybe SQL Server, nobody asks if there are going to be associated costs with that licensing. CABs are typically focused on resolving operational issues or deploying new code. And ServiceNow solves this problem for you by putting the information right here at your fingertips, as you can see.
Next slide. And finally, about 80% of your software spend is likely with your top few software publishers. These same vendors can and often do perform audits. Tony will take you through a few screens to understand how our licensing workbench makes the daily life of asset managers more simple, on target, and allows them to take proactive steps rather than continually working in arrears. Next slide.
But wait, there's more. So although we don't have time to cover all these topics today, ServiceNow is best positioned to help your agency with software spend detection, shadow IT, and SaaS license management. Please feel free to reach out to your ServiceNow sales rep to learn more and go a bit deeper than our webinar is able to provide today. So thank you for your time.
So without further ado, we'd like to turn the webinar over to Tony to show you what we've just discussed. Thanks.
And Tony, are you on mute?
That I was. I'll try that again. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for that great presentation, Mary, Chris. I'm going to start off by doing a live demonstration, kind of going in from that end user view perspective that Chris mentioned. So if you might imagine, your end users will go to a self-service portal, then maybe a catalog where we can either do contextual searches like we do with Google, or we can browse by categories. So in this case, we're going to go to the software category, and now I can be rest assured that I'm only going to be able to order, or even view for that matter, certified or whitelisted catalog items or software titles. These are approved by your particular agency and even filtered down further based on your roles and responsibilities within the agency. So here we might imagine that I'm a developer and I need a copy of Dreamweaver. I could add this to my cart like I do with Amazon, maybe go back into the hardware section and maybe order a developer's laptop. But since we're focused on SAM today, I'm just going to go ahead and order that particular piece of software. I'm then going to check out. It knows who I'm authenticated due to my PIV card authentication and single sign-on. And I'm actually returned with a receipt. No longer am I picking up the phone and ordering something or using email where I never know when I'm going to get that item until it shows up in my cube. Here we have an estimated delivery, and we're even exposing stages of the workflow. We're not showing the entire workflow because the end user really doesn't care, but we're able to stage out portions of that workflow and provide that information back so the requester knows where their requested item is at any given time. Now, if I grab this request ID and go into the back end here, I'm going to use my global search. Now I'm a fulfiller of this particular request. I'm able to go directly to that requested item. We can see that my Dreamweaver software title is here. If I had kept shopping and ordered maybe additional items, we would also see those. They're all running in parallel and being fulfilled in their own process of the workflow. In this case, if I look at that workflow, I can see that this is already completed and even spawned another request. It probably completed so quickly because the price was under $1,000. This is just one of the activities that you can define. So if we look at this other workflow that was spawned, I have created a procurement task. If we go back on the record here, we review the information that's been populated, or because it is less than $1,000, maybe just go ahead and source that request. When I use that sourcing widget, it's going to go out into my use rights or my software entitlement library and tell me how many rights I have available. Also, if I had 0 available here, I could cut a purchase order directly from this widget. We have a procurement management solution that can be bisynchronously integrated with your legacy procurement solution where ServiceNow would act as that orchestrator to kind of kick off that purchasing activity. But because I don't need that, I can go ahead and create the allocation directly from here. Once I add that allocation, I can go out into the entitlement library and see that I have 2 software entitlements. One is based on a per user metric. The other is a per device. So if I went over here and looked up my device, whatever that might be, dude IBM, and go ahead and submit that, I'm now adding that allocation directly from that purchasing activity. So if we go back to the request item, we can see that assigned allocation has already taken place. So now I know I've removed one of the licenses from my entitlement library and actually allocated that out to the device dude IBM. So that's pretty concise type of activity that's available out of the box. But let's go back and look a little more about the structure of SAM Pro. There's really only 2 pieces of information or data sources that SAM needs. One of those, obviously, is found in our CMDB. That's going to be your computers, your laptops, your desktops, your workstations. These are the assets that your end users are using productivity software on primarily. I have a filtered down view here showing me any IBM. If I open up that record, I'm opening this up in my asset management view here. This is the contractual, the financial. I need to know what state this asset is in. Who is it assigned to? What's its location, etc. But if I switch hats over into that configuration management view from the same record, I'm now going to look at what SAM's really looking for. Things that are important to creating a license position. Maybe not from a desktop and laptop perspective, but here we have things like CPU count, core counts, RAM size. More importantly, if I scroll down to my attributes, I find a tab called Software Installs. These software installations are really the licensable software that SAM is going to be bringing into SAM Pro to form that license position once I reconcile. Here we see several titles of Microsoft and Adobe productivity software. If I was on a server, you know, I'd probably see some of the same stuff, just a little more beefier numbers, especially in the core counts. And yeah, of course, I've got 12 CPU counts, 6 cores. A CPU core count is 6. I've got different types of software running in my data center. You know, things like SQL Server, Oracle WebLogic. These all take into consideration the number of cores when we do that calculation using the publisher packs that are included with SAM Pro. So those are the software installs. Very important to understand what's running in your environment. It's when we get to the software entitlements. These are the use rights that have been purchased. So if I go down here, let me do a quick search for Microsoft Professional, I'm going to be able to see what I've you know, purchased in the way of Adobe, DC Professional, Microsoft Office 2013, various titles. But I'm going to open up this particular entitlement here, and we can see that I've purchased 25 rights. It looks like I have 25 active, and I only have 3 allocations available because I've already started to allocate those out to individuals. We also see one of the mandatory fields here is the software model. This is the content that resides in the content library that also comes with SAM Pro. These software models are going to help in the normalization when that occurs. It's going to help with your downgrade uprights, all sorts of enrichment data in the form of lifecycle data, metric attributes, various information that's provided by the publishers that's really going to help your asset management teams better manage your assets and the categorization of those assets. We can also see these metric group and license metric, as well as agreement type and license types. We have various out-of-the-box agreement types, license types that support all of the P1 publishers. In this case, we're using the Microsoft Publisher Pack, which brings in those Microsoft-specific license metrics, you know, the CAL licensing, per CAL, per server type of licensing. We have several others. We even have a common license metric group that's going to be those more generic per user, per device, per named user, et cetera. So once we have our CMDB populated with the software that's running on the hardware in your environment, that can be brought into the CMDB in several ways. You know, we have an integration, several integrations with endpoint management solutions, most notably Microsoft SCCM. That's probably our more mature integration module. We have BigFix, we have Jamf, Tanium, but you know, even whatever endpoint management solution you're using, if we don't have a connector for that, it's still pretty straightforward to build an API integration or even to do an import through a data set to bring that data into the CMDB, put it in the right tables for SAM to then access. Once we access those installations, let me cancel that. Once we access those installations, we're going to do that normalization that I talked about. When we open up our discovery models for every instantiation of a software install we discover, in this case, Microsoft Outlook was discovered running on a machine in the CMDB. I apologize, my network is really slow to a crawl here. But once we open that up, we're going to see those raw discovery fields. This is brought in through SCCM or using our discovery, ServiceNow's automated discovery patterns to bring in Microsoft Outlook MUI. And now I've got this long version string that I can't make any sense of. We are going to run that through our normalization engine and our content service. We're going to translate those fields to Microsoft Office Outlook 2013. We're then going to go out into the CMDB, look for any other instantiation of this version string, and we're also going to mark that as normalized and change those values as well. So that's the quick run-through of normalization. Let's talk about reconciliation. So if we want to run reconciliation once we bring our license entitlements in, we have a feature known as reconciliation dimensions, where I can start to filter down to an individual publisher. I could even go out into different companies or components of your agency or sub-agency and kind of really narrow the focus of my product results. Maybe I need to go out to a particular cost center because it's been identified that, you know, they're really underutilizing a high-cost software title like Microsoft Visio or Project. I can run that reconciliation, and the results or the product results are going to populate this master report called our license position report. This is where we're getting a lot of that data or placing that data where our customers can then come in, start using some of the ServiceNow reporting capabilities by simply right-clicking in a cell. Maybe I don't care about those things that are compliant. I only want to see all the non-compliant titles. Now let's create a report, a bar chart that's based on the different license metrics that are used. That's going to take us seamlessly into our reporting capability where I can do some additional filtering. Maybe I want to look at the software products that are aligned to these metrics. Go to next here. Now I'm starting to really drill in on the data that I need. We have interactive filtering where I can start to filter out things that are not important. We can now even drill into each one of these bars or pie slices and get to that filtered view of data. So that's just a quick look into our reporting capabilities and that license position report. Another place, and Chris mentioned this, where a lot of our users, a lot of our asset management teams will be spending a lot of time is in this license workbench. So once we run that reconciliation where we're comparing what's been discovered with what we've purchased, the output is going to be visualized in this license workbench. Here we have a tiled view of my entire software landscape, my demo software landscape here. Yours would probably be much larger. Some filtered views on the publishers that are out of compliance, or maybe I want to go to one, I'm responsible for that Microsoft BPA. A couple lines of information here, but if we drill in, we're now able to drill down into all of my Microsoft products and get some really good information. What's my total spend? If Microsoft came knocking today, what would my potential fine be for a true-up over licensed amount? And this potential savings is a really good one because every dollar saved from reclaiming unused software is a dollar off of that total true-up cost. So you can see that we'd actually be in pretty good shape here if we started to reclaim unused software. How we do that, we go down here to reclamation rules. We can define a very simple rule based on total usage time. If you're not using Microsoft Project at least 5 hours over a 3-month period, I'm going to flag you as a reclamation candidate. And when that candidate is identified, we have an out-of-the-box workflow that would be able to take over working with your endpoint management system, of course, because it's agent-based. We would kick off this workflow. We would go out there after certain actions have been met, and we could actually pull that software off using SCCM, BigFix, or Tanium, etc. We use the same workflow for that blacklisted software that Chris and Mary were mentioning, and even unlicensed software. So if I go back to my workbench here, and where's my workbench? If I go back to my workbench here, if we found a software title, 35 unlicensed software installs that were identified, we would have the ability to use our remediation options that would be actually outlined here if we had any unlicensed installs, where we could add that to an SCCM collections folder and then start that process using the workflow. So let's talk a little bit about some of the dashboards that we see in SAM Pro here. let me go to my instance here. So if I'm looking at a SAM overview, this is kind of going to be my enterprise view across my entire software landscape. I've got a better one here. SAM overview. This is going to show me that top level overview, my true up cost with some breakdowns. Looks like IBM is my biggest violator here. Publishers out of compliance. If I drilled in, that's going to take me right to that license workbench. Products would do the same, and that potential savings that I talked about. It's when we get into our removal summary where we're really able to see some of those things that are in action. Here's 17,000 of those reclamation candidates that cross that threshold of not using software enough, where they've now become a candidate for me to remove that software instead of purchasing software for other individuals who do need it. We can also see that we have 4 titles of blacklisted software. If I drill in here, it's going to take me to those. Looks like we have 4 games, Age of Empires, that are running out in the environment. And same with that unlicensed software that I was talking about. Here we've identified 45 unlicensed installations that are also being removed. Several other views within this tab include the license, the software lifecycle. This is really big for my DoD customers because they really are trying to get a handle on the end of support or end of life software that's running in their environments. Because we all know if something's out of support or especially out of life, end of life, there's the potential for risk. So we want to remediate that risk and keep ahead of it by looking out across this timeline, going out into the CMDB and identifying those specific installs, where they're running, what machine they're on, and put the right due diligence in place to actually remove those. So this is a really useful view, and this new report that was just added in our Orlando release has been very, very beneficial. So let's talk a little bit about some of the better together stories. If we're talking about change management, Chris mentioned his favorite, if I can spell here. Imagine a change request is submitted by one of your engineers in the data center. They're complaining of slow performance. I want to double the core count from 4 to 8 because I don't like waiting for my actions to complete. A lot of times when this goes to CAB or your change review board, this is going to get approved because we always want to keep our engineers happy. Here we have the configuration item that's in effect. This is the server that the gentleman's wanting to make changes on. We can scroll down here. We can see there's 3 titles, Windows Server, SQL Server, and Oracle DB. They're all using that per core or per processor metric. Because this is part of our content, this core CPU table, we're able to keep up with those changes that the vendors make to these calculations. That's also part of our publisher packs. But because I have this information and we're using those publisher packs to do that calculation, I'm also able to expose a license change projection tab right on the change request form. So now when we're going through our change requests for the week or for the month, I'm able to see here's my current spend. Here's what I'm going to be adding to that spend to bump that up to 308,000. So I may want to think twice about kind of implementing or approving that particular change request. Let's go back to the dashboards real quick here. I wanted to highlight the publisher overview. I didn't really get to that one because we have some of that same of end-of-life information for each of our publisher packs. So if I'm looking again at Microsoft, because that's the publisher that I'm responsible for, I can see that I have several products that are end of life or end of support here. I could drill right into the CMDB directly from there, work with those service owners or those software management individuals and work with them to get this back into the proper support structure. We have more of an enterprise architect view where we can also visualize this, called the technology portfolio management or technology lifecycle view. This is where I can look at a timeline First of all, I can see the business capabilities, kind of those logical business services that we've defined and added to our portfolio. Underpinning those key business services are going to be application services. There's going to be software that's going to be related to those application services, as well as even hardware. Kind of a shout out to the upcoming Paris release. We're also going to be adding hardware normalization, where we're going to be normalizing on manufacturer, product, and model number. That model ID would be that unique identifier, something very exciting that we're adding to the content service. So now, not only can I manage the end of life of software on a timeline, I'm also going to be able to manage that parent hardware that software is residing on. In this case, looks like a Oracle Database Server 11G R2 standard. Once we identify these things, if we're looking at the legend here of the life cycles that we track, I would then be able to create a demand to get these, to get these software titles back under a support structure, to get that hardware upgraded to maybe the next release or next model version that's approved by the agency. So very beneficial views, and that's part of our application portfolio management solution. Another capability that Chris and Mary mentioned is our vulnerability assessment. This is brand new in our Orlando release, but if you might imagine, I'm using ServiceNow's security operations, I'm using vulnerability response, security incident response. I want to go out and look for a vulnerability. The CISO just emailed me or called me, hey, Tony, there is a 0-day vulnerability for Microsoft Office. So I can go into this assessment engine, simply put the publisher, the product. I can put the version in addition if I want. Very quickly, I can scan my CMDB and look for any instantiations of Microsoft Office. In this case, it looks like we brought back 808 broken down into these discovery models and products down here with those sums over to the right here. So that quickly, I'm able to scan my CMDB, look for that potentially vulnerable software. Now let's create vulnerable items. So obviously, if there's a 0-day vulnerability, there's most likely a CVE or a CWE. I'm just going to grab one just for the demonstration purposes. I can now relate those potential vulnerabilities and create vulnerable items that can now be assigned to my vulnerability management team to actually go out there and remediate these potentially vulnerable items. So very exciting enhancement and seamless integration with those two capabilities. Several others, HR onboarding, offboarding. As you're bringing in new employees into the agency, new contractors, I'm able to allocate software directly from that single workflow. Same with when they offboard or leave the agency. I want to be able to reclaim those subscriptions and put them back into the inventory for the next new employee or new contractor. So many times across the Fed, we're seeing subscriptions that are retiring are staying active after folks have left the agency. We can save thousands and even millions of dollars in reclaiming those stale or unutilized, unused type of subscriptions. So I think we finished a little early today. Chris, was there anything, maybe we should go in and show a little bit of our software spend detection. I know we said that we would save some of that, but I think we have a few minutes to maybe.
That's a great idea, Tony.
Thank you, thank you. So I didn't have a bookmark for that. So software spend. So within software spend detection, if I could spell. So within software spend detection, we have the ability to import, accounting or general ledger type of expense lines. So if you might imagine, the agency has a P card where various cost centers and individuals are allowed to go out and make purchases. Here with the click of a button or this little toggle here, I'm able to show the things that are managed or unmanaged in my environment. In this case, I want to look at the things that are unmanaged. Sam is already managing some of my other big publishers. But these are all the software titles that we've detected running based on that import from your general ledger or Concur or whatever accounting system you're using. We've identified 50 different publishers. We can visualize those different products that individuals have purchased. I can't believe someone would purchase a virtual server with a B card, but I think you get the drift here. So this is going to show us, we can even do some filtered views of specific things that we might be looking at. Maybe I'm only interested in the Google purchases that have been made. Anecdotally, I'll tell you a story. We were doing a proof of concept with one of our commercial airlines out in the Midwest. And during that proof of value, we were able to identify like 300 plus Netflix accounts that folks were purchasing. Well, when we were doing the readback to the executives on the outcomes of the POV, you can imagine that caught someone's attention in the room, and hopefully nobody got in too much trouble over that. But it was just one of those moments where, wow, 300 plus people are using the company card here to pay for their Netflix accounts. So once we drill in, we can get down into the cost center or, where the department that information is coming from, and even the location. I want to know exactly what part of this airline, what part of the country are these showing up. So very beneficial when you get to that more mature of optimizing your software spend, like Chris said. Another one is overlapping software. So if we go to our overlapping software, and by the way, these modules all come within SAM Pro. We certainly don't expect our customers to jump from that, just getting started or that crawl, walk, run right up to wanting to optimize. But the capability is there if that's certainly your agency's focus. Because of the enrichment data that we provide, we're using that UN SPSC classification schema that's going to categorize certain software titles with these industry-known categories. I can very quickly jump in here and see, what titles, what categories have the most overlapping software. In this case, the highest count over the last 2 years, and you can filter based on these tabs here, was project management. So many different cost centers are buying their own project management tools. Maybe there's a policy within the agency that you're only supposed to be using ServiceNow project management solution. You'd probably want to look at getting rid of some of this shadow IT and start to optimize your software spend across the agency. So I think very great modules and capabilities built within SAM Pro. As you mature, your usage of SAM Pro are even going to help you save even more money as you look at those optimization capabilities. Well, that was about all I had. Like Chris and Mary mentioned, please reach out to your federal account teams, and we would be more than happy to come in and do a more detailed demonstration, deep dive, even look at utilizing some of your data to show off some of these capabilities. Thank you, and have a great afternoon, everyone.
Excellent. Thank you.